Hello and welcome back to The Uninformed Catholic. I'm Jeremy,
I'm Jed.
and we're here to talk to you today about...
Archbishop Wilton Daniel Gregory, currently in Atlanta, but scheduled to move to Washington, D.C. Next month. Yeah, just about a month away. A little more, I think, from when we record this.
Yeah.
Cool. So I'm just gonna go into the bio, and then Jeremy will jump in soon. Boom, 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 boom. So this was a surprising pick, to say the least, I think, for a lot of people, but it also, I think once we dive into it, it might make a little more sense as to why the Pope went this route. So anyway, he was born in 1947 in Chicago. He's from the South Side there, and he is not born into a Catholic family. He began going to Catholic school, I think, when he was around the age of 6, and immediately wanted to become a priest. His parents let him convert early on. So honestly, early in the life seems like a pretty good rap sheet so far. He was ordained really young, 25, in 1973, and went on to get his doctorate in sacred liturgy, I believe, in Rome there, and then went into his pastoral work for a little bit, but was ordained, or episcopal ordination, I think is what it's called, to be an auxiliary bishop in Chicago. So he's been in Chicago this whole time so far. That is 1983. So he was actually only 36, which is about as young as you can get. I think 35 is the limit to be a bishop. He was there for another 10 years under Bernardine, so that's going to be important later on, I think, for us to discuss. And in 93, 94, early 94, moved to the Diocese of Belleville, Washington, as the bishop. From this point on, he's basically cleanup crew, it looks like. Based off everything I can find, he kind of is the guy they send in after some scandal breaks out, which is pretty early in Belleville, 94. But he's there until 2004, so as soon as the early 2000s hit, he's cleanup crew. From what I can find, he actually does an okay job. And then he gets moved in 2004 to Atlanta. I'm assuming he had a lot more cleanup there with the outbreak of the 2002 scandal and all that came prior to that. And that brings him to now. So it's kind of a surprising switch. Jeremy, you have any more to say on that?
The only thing that I have to say really is that if he's traditionally been good at diffusing bad situations, I think he's probably the best choice to be going into D.C. right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't think he's been a huge name cardinal, but I mean archbishop now. Soon,
it's hard to keep track
soon
of those
to probably
things.
soon to be cardinal, unless Pope Francis changes that tradition.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he.
My mom will be a cardinal.
Great.
That's another
weird.
subject in itself.
That's like, never mind. We'll talk about that later. I have a really funny thing that was like.
But yeah.
But anyway, yeah. So he actually seems like it's kind of making sense. I think he'll be the first African American archbishop of a major diocese if he gets cardinal, first African American cardinal. Here in the U.S., African American, obviously. And so I think that's kind of good for his record, or for Pope Francis to kind of show that he's making those strides the way he wants to. I think Jeremy said it right. He's kind of a cleanup guy. It's really weird because I don't think anyone ever has been moved from Atlanta as the archbishop. I think that's a pretty interesting fact. Just that usually these guys go in and they stay.
And I mean, Jed and I were talking about off the mic that we think Pope Francis might actually be playing this one pretty smart, rather than putting somebody like Cardinal Cupich over in D.C. I think when McCarrick was when all this was going down, we were all kind of afraid that was going to happen.
Yeah, definitely, and I think that obviously, I think the Pope favors Cupich a little bit, but This is actually kind of a good play because this is an African American bishop, archbishop, that grew up in Chicago under Bernardine, was a priest under, I think he was ordained before Bernardine actually, Archbishop Cardinal Cody. But then when he was auxiliary bishop, obviously that was under Bernardine. And then when he moved to Belleville, Illinois, and it was the bishop there, for at least half that time, a little more than half the time, his archbishop would have been Supich. So there's someone who's been close to the people that Pope Francis seems to prefer in the U.S. and more of a lesser known player, I guess, less controversial.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's pretty much it there. But I think that it's important to note he is 71 years old. He's not a super young guy, not a spring chicken. And he's been cleanup crew for at least the last 20 years, ish. I don't know exactly when scandal broke out in Belleville, but he's been playing cleanup. He was the head of the USCCB there for, I think, 3 years in the late 1990s, early 2000s. So he's used to it, and I think going to DC now is a good move on Pope Francis's part. Not too controversial character, at least outwardly. We'll talk about that a little more. But
yeah, fairly neutral in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, keeps a low profile, if nothing else, and has some good things going for him. At least according to the public eye. We'll talk about that too. But from Pope Francis's viewpoint, there's a guy who goes in, cleans up. From what I understand, he actually does an okay job cleaning up after scandal. We'll see how he does in D.C. That's obviously a lot of scandal to clean up. We're still wondering how Cardinal Wuerl is acting and saying masses there. Yeah, that's
yeah, we can talk about Cardinal Wuerl too at some point.
Yeah, I'd love to.
I like how during that whole thing with Cardinal Wuerl earlier, the whole McCarrick, all that stuff. I remember Michael Voris came out with something and he was reporting on it and he called it the whirlwind.
Yeah, it's wild. I've actually met Cardinal Wuerl a couple times. I think I met McCarrick once. Not my proudest days.
Back then you wouldn't have known anything.
Yeah, back then I knew nothing.
And you probably
just like, oh, there's this guy in the red.
Probably a good thing you were with your parents at the time too.
No, it was mostly in college.
Yeah, it was in college. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. So anyway, this guy is 71, does a good job cleaning up. Hopefully that remains true, and he can at least help diffuse the absurd amount of unknowing and controversy in that diocese, arguably the most important diocesan chair in the U.S. for the church. And I think Pope Francis knows that his retirement age is 4 years away. And he's kind of like, yeah, we'll see how he does. Hopefully his cleanup's good. If not, it's only 4 years. If so, I can, wait a little longer. I can keep him.
Yeah, hopefully after Pope Francis sees this run its course, he doesn't decide to put somebody else in there who will do the same thing McCarrick did. And like we said, we were glad that Cardinal Supich didn't end up there. Hey, maybe he'll end up there after this guy's out, so who knows?
Yeah, definitely. It's still a lot up in the air. It's not really giving us a clear path for the next 10 years. It's kind of like we'll get 3.5, 4 years with this guy, and then we'll see what happens, depending on how the Pope does, how he does. There's a lot of factors.
If Pope Francis lives until then.
Yeah, just so many things up in the air. So, Jeremy, give me your take. Any other reasons you think that the Pope wanted him here? Is it just sort of like this chair's been open too long? Or?
Yeah, so we talked about this. I mean, I think there could be and there could be a level of appeasement going on to the public, and I don't mean anything against this cardinal. Man, why do I keep saying cardinal? Why do you keep saying that? This bishop. But we think that Pope Francis might be taking advantage of the of how pervasive identity politics are in America right now and in the West in general. and I think he knows that. I mean, we were already we watched a couple of interviews, and one of them it was just stressed how he was going to be the first African American bishop over in D.C. or
no, he'll be the
or what was it?
If everything goes through, he will be the first U.S. Or African American cardinal.
African American cardinal.
Yeah.
Okay,
and
yeah.
I think he might either he's the first in an archdiocese or the first of a large archdiocese. Yeah, bishop.
Which by the way is a great thing, but we think that Pope Francis could be taking advantage of the political weight behind something like that to kind of mitigate a lot of the backlash going on after the whole scandal with McCarrick. Softening the blow a little bit. I think that could be a big part of it. What else were we discussing off microphone, Jed? What were some of the other things we said?
We can go a little bit into. Well, first off, I just want to say we are praying for him. We hope he has a good time there, a good career, is able to kind of diffuse some of the, almost shame over the diocese there with the last couple cardinals we've had, and we do want the best thing to happen that can for the church. I think it would be good to go a little more in depth into his past history, his friends, see kind of what he's about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So one of the things to note, I did say he was president of the USCCB. He was definitely on the chair in the late 90s, president of the USCCB from 2001 to 2004. And he was in charge because that time is obviously like the biggest part of scandal that we've seen in our lifetime. Probably most people who will hear this have seen in their lifetime, if not all. Until, now, we'll see. But he was in charge of the Dallas Charter for the protection of children and young people. And I think that's important because while it's really good, he did a lot of good things there. The charter, the protection, the zero tolerance policy, everything that came with it. The bishop's in charge of it, and I guess he was fully in charge at the time, failed to include bishops in the charter. So while he did do what I think is a pretty decent job back then, and did last for quite a while, I think we're seeing a lot less scandal, failed to put him and McCarrick and Wuerl and all the others on that list.
Yeah.
Yeah. It just made it almost impossible to get a bishop, and almost impossible for a priest not to be gotten. Yeah. It doesn't look like Jeremy has much to say right now. He has endorsed James Martin, is another thing that I think people should be aware of. I think I saw James Martin post about it. Just so good friend, getting this.
Yeah,
so that's always something to be
things like that
iffy.
will always be a bit of a red flag.
Yeah, that one of the surprising red flags, maybe not so much for him, but for Bishop Barron, said he's a close mentor. And while that's not necessarily a bad thing, just look at his track record. He's been under Bernardine, Supich. He's friends with James Martin. And now we have Bishop Barron, who was for a long time, potentially still is, seen as a stronghold in the Catholic Church, especially with his use of media. I think a lot of people really respect him. His series on Catholicism, I haven't seen the whole thing. I've seen parts. It looked really good. But in recent times has been taking some of the more left-leaning stances with, what is it, Jeremy?
With the teaching that there is no salvation outside the Catholic Church. That was a big one, really, really controversial, and he took a lot of heat for that one from more traditional podcasters and people of the like. And it's sad because he's very highly renowned and was for a very long time, as Jed was saying, and even now. I don't even want to say sadly, but right now he's still one of the better and more orthodox bishops in America.
At least of the well-known ones, yeah.
Of the well-known ones. Yeah. And, I think there are reasons for him bending to the will of the world, if you will, or taking on more liberal public opinions anyway, like being more public in a he's expressed his opinions publicly in a more liberal way, probably because he's a lot more like he's in the public sphere a lot more than other bishops. And like he has a lot of influence because of his YouTube channel, and a lot of people know and love him. And I think he just bent to the pressure of knowing that he has a lot of publicity, that he had to. He may have been a little bit too careful on and like too afraid to say anything that would insult or upset anyone of another faith, and that would hurt his reputation with the world in the public sphere. I think a lot of that's what happened with him.
Yeah, that could have been. I mean, you really see your true colors of people once they're put in a position where it could affect them. Yeah, and that's not a good thing. So, yeah, I think it's also just a dangerous game, even if you still really like Bishop Barron or Archbishop Wilton Gregory. There's going to be more and more, at least foreseeably, more and more split between the more traditional and conservative Catholics and the more liberal Catholics. It's unfortunate we have to say that at all. It should just be one faith. And by tying themselves together, I don't think it was really Archbishop Wilton Gregory who meant to do that, but Bishop Barron, who publicly said that is a great mentor of mine, one of my long friend mentors, and by tying himself to that, if there is a big split, that is going to be one of Pope Francis's go-tos in D.C. and Bishop Barron's basically put his eggs in that basket.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's going to be it's going to be interesting to see how it unfolds. I think there's a lot of bishops, archbishops, and in the U.S. that are kind of riding the line like Barron has been, right in the middle, a little more orthodox and by today's standards, and I think like once we start seeing a little more scandal, a little more iffy teachings, they're going to have to make a choice one way or the other, and I think this could be one of those things that causes Barron to go the other way.
Yeah. I actually also think, just kind of along the lines of, Barron kind of adopting his, like just the way that he presents his opinions publicly. I think it just reminds us that we have to be careful not to put any of the prelates that we hold with a lot of respect on too much of a high pedestal, because our faith will get shaken when they unfortunately bend underneath the pressure of the world. And I think we just have to be careful to make sure that we're holding fast to the faith, and that we're that we're just not going to get too crushed if even somebody like Cardinal Burke bends where we would have hoped that he wouldn't, or something like that. That
would be a tough one.
That would be a very bad one. That's I'm just making an extreme example here.
Yeah, that's extreme.
but
it could happen. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, all I'm trying to say really is that it's God's church, and we just have to remember not to put the prelates in too high of a place of they're going to make mistakes, and they're human. And it's not excusable for them to take positions that are directly contradictory to the teachings of the church. But we have to remember that they're not the be all and end all of everything, even though they're the ones on the front lines that can actually fight the war in a much more influential way in the church than we can.
For sure. Couple points to that. I think that's going to be a recurring theme in our podcast of making sure that we don't put any single prelate too high on our list, and not just following single people because we like what they've done so far. Also, lost my train of thought. Go ahead, Jeremy.
I was just listening to what you were saying. I lost my train of thought too.
No,
Jed and I are not very good at conducting our thought trains here.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about that. Oh, well, I guess it's important to just recognize that we are the uninformed Catholic. I think that's the name.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
there will be a little bit of a footnote that says we're not as uninformed as we like to pretend we are.
Yeah, we definitely have more knowledge than the average Catholic, by far. But yeah. I don't pretend to be the smartest or the most well-informed. I don't think Jeremy would either.
Right.
And all the information that we do have is accessible to people if they search. So we're just, you know, we want to make known that we're going to be looking into these questions a lot. You're uninformed, we're uninformed. No one really knows the politics of the Vatican except those who are in them. And we're really trying to just kind of ask the questions, figure out the answers, because right now it doesn't seem like we have a strong father to lead us and give us the answers to the questions that we all have burning desires for.
And ultimately, we want to get to a point of salvation, and we want you to get to a point of salvation. So we feel it's very important for us to press into these questions and answer them, and make sure that you know what we know.
Just seeking truth.
Seeking truth. Woo.
That would be a great name for a podcast if anyone does hear this. Seeking truth. Go do it. Start one. We'll be on it. Hit us up.
Yeah, we'll be on it. Yeah.
Shoot. I mean, that's all I got. I just wanted to talk about it. Presumably, he's going to be cardinal. And then from there, we just kind of have to see what happens. His track record has ups and downs. His friend group doesn't make me happy. Based off things I've seen, it's been, you know, I mean, like I said, Father James Martin and then Bishop Barron was kind of a little bit of a shock, but the other people that tend to celebrate his change of position aren't people that I would put my faith in. So, yeah. So I think that's all we got. We just wanted to give our quick take on it, give a little background. A lot of people probably don't know who he is. You know, he's not been a huge name. He's been up there. I mean, he's had important positions, head of the USCCB and Archdiocese of Atlanta. These are big spots. But he hasn't been in the public sphere as much. Yeah,
Yeah, I think also, but before we sign off on this one, I think what we're probably going to do, you know, we're just getting started out. This is the third podcast we've made so far, and I think that we're just going to feel it out, and we're going to think of different types of, you know, segments we can include in our general podcast channel. So we might have shorter ones like this where we report on, you know, more practical, very tangible, less controversial things like, you know, which cardinals are being elevated to, you know, being a cardinal. Which bishops and, you know, things like that. So right now this will be like one of our shorter podcasts, and I will learn how to speak better and more fluidly, and not trip over words like that, and good stuff like that. And so I mean, you know, this will be one of the shorter ones that we do, and like I said, I think Jed and I will figure out, because like a lot of channels like come up with their own little shows that they do within their channel. Like I know Michael Vors has like the Vortex, and then they have Mic'd Up, and then all different things like that. So
yeah,
you know, yeah. So we'll do a variety of different things
for sure. Figuring it out as we go. Expect some to be as short as probably 15-20 minutes, and some to be as long as, I mean, in the future I could see hour plus, depending on if we have like people with us and what Pope Francis does that week.
Yeah. Now is another episode of What the Heck Did Pope Francis Do in the Public Sphere?
Yeah. So, you know, give us some advice. Let us know if you like it, if you don't like it, and that's that.
Thanks for listening, and Jeremy the Ex-Missionary signing off and misspeaking. Yeah.
Pray to Mary.
Do that. Pray to Mary. Worship the Pope. Don't do any of that.
No. All right. See you guys. Bye.